We talk a lot about roller coasters on this channel, but I think dark rides are very important as well. The big roller coaster might be the ride that brings people in initially, but I think in a lot of ways, dark rides is what makes them want to come back. And this doesn't just go for Disney or Universal either. I think a lot of theme parks could use dark rides that don't have any. It really helps round out your lineup. So today, let's look at the best dark rides that open for the 2024 season around the world. Before getting into the list though, I want to note that I'm only going to be including rides that have actually opened so far. Rides like the Barbie Flying Theater at Mattel Adventure Park might be good enough to make the list, but at this time we just don't know. Number 10. Flyover Chicago. This is a standalone flying theater on the Navy Pier in Chicago, Illinois. This is the 5th iteration of the flyover chain. This comes after Flyover Canada, Flyover America, Flyover Iceland, and Flyover Las Vegas. The ride system was done by Brogan Technologies, the screen was done by Pursuit, and the technical installations were by Craftwork Living Technologies. If you've ridden one flying theater, then you get an idea as to what all of these are about, but this one has some nice effects like wind and water. This is a ride that definitely reminds me of Soarin' Around the World at the Disney parks. Probably not as good as that one, but this looks like an awesome standalone attraction. So if you ever find yourself in Illinois, say maybe you're at Six Flags Great America up in Gurnee, Chicago is only an hour away, so give it a ride. Number 9. Cadbury Chocolate Quest at Cadbury World in the UK. This attraction essentially replaces Cadabra, which opened in 1997 and closed this year. Cadbury Chocolate Quest is a trackless dark ride. The ride system was done by ETF Systems, and the interactive systems were done by Alterface. I know I just compared Flyover Chicago to Soarin' Around the World, but I feel as if this ride is Cadbury's take on the Hershey's dark ride you can find in Pennsylvania. They show you how the chocolate gets made, except the main difference here is that this is an interactive shooting dark ride. The Hershey's dark ride in Pennsylvania is not. As you've probably been able to tell from the footage, this is a very screen-based ride. I think almost to a fault. Screens can be good, but ultimately physical sets always win out. Because of that, this is a good, not great replacement for Cadabra. Number 8. Despicable Me Minion Mayhem at Universal Studios Singapore. This is a clone of the other Despicable Me Minion Mayhems you can find around the world. There's one at Universal Studios Hollywood, there's one at the Universal Orlando Resort, and there's one at Universal Studios Beijing. After going through a couple of pre-shows and getting turned into a minion along the way, you enter minion training in the cartoonish world of the Minions. From my experience down in Hollywood, this ride is fine. Not the best ride in the park, but also not the worst. In the context of its own park, this ride replaces Madagascar, a great adventure. Number 7. Dämonen Gruft at Heidi Park in Germany. Well, here's a shift from something happy and lighthearted to something, well, kinda dark. This dark ride is located right next to the Flug der Dämonen roller coaster and expands on that ride's theme. The story takes place underneath a village in catacombs. This village has been terrorized by demons, and so the villagers draw in guests so that the demons can steal our souls instead of the villagers. Very comforting. This ride has a nice mix of screens and physical sets. The ride system was done by Preston and Barbieri. The theming was done by TAA Group, and the media on the screens was once again done by Alterface. I think the chilling theme was well displayed, and of course, because it's a ride themed about demons, there are some jump scares thrown in for good measure. If you want creepy rides, Europe is the place to go, in particular Alton Towers in the UK, but now Heidi Park has something to say about that. Number 6. Fairy Tinkerbell's Busy Buggies. First of all, that's a tongue twister, and second of all, another very big genre shift. You can find this ride at Tokyo Disney Sea in the brand new Fantasy Springs section of the park. And spoiler alert, it's not the last ride we'll see from Fantasy Springs on this list. After a well-themed queue, you board your ride vehicle, and the whole ride takes place outdoors. There's no real story, but it has an excellent musical score and excellent visuals. Disney did a really good job here of bringing some of those fairy tale cartoon moments to life. It's not the longest ride in the world, in fact it is kind of on the shorter side, but it's beautiful and a good addition to Fantasy Springs. Number 5. Spongebob's Crazy Carnival Ride at the Circus Circus Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. As if the Adventure Dome wasn't enough, now there's a dark ride to check out too. This $6 million interactive shooting dark ride is done by Sally Dark Rides, with the ride system being done by ETF Ride Systems. This ride, of course, is centered around the SpongeBob characters. Mr. Krabs invites riders to try their luck at a series of weird and wacky carnival games. And of course, you have his enemy, Plankton, who is trying to get a hold of the Krabby Patty secret formula that has led to Mr. Krabs' successful restaurant, the Krusty Krab. I don't know these characters very well, so I probably don't appreciate all the theming that they were able to put in here, but I think this is a pretty solid ride, in particular considering it's a standalone attraction. Yes, it is another screen-based ride, but there are a few animatronics mixed in for variety, which is much appreciated. So overall, when you go to Las Vegas, add this to your itinerary and give it a ride. Number 4. Peter Pan's Neverland Adventure at Tokyo Disney Sea in Japan. Here's another one of those Fantasy Springs dark rides I talked about earlier, and there's still a couple more on this list. After walking through an intricately themed queue, you board your ride vehicle and enter another screen-based experience. I really enjoyed the classic Peter Pan's Flight that you find at the American Disney parks, and to me, this is the next generation, so to speak, of that ride. I don't think it has nearly as much charm as the originals, but considering it opened almost 70 years later, there's no doubt that technologically speaking, it is much more advanced. And even though I'm not usually a huge fan of screens, I will give them credit. The screens here are pretty darn impressive. So, to review Peter Pan's Neverland Journey, this ride looks pretty good, but I don't think it's the best dark ride in the Fantasy Springs area. Number 3, Tiana's Bayou Adventure at Disneyland and Disney's Magic Kingdom. Now I understand that Disneyland's version hasn't opened yet, and I said that I wouldn't include dark rides that haven't opened yet, so for that reason, let's just talk about the Magic Kingdom version. This is, of course, the replacement to Splash Mountain, and while I think it was a bad idea to replace Splash Mountain with Tiana's, that's a conversation for another day. For now, let's focus on what Tiana's does well, and while I don't think it's a perfect ride by any stretch, it does do some things well, namely the animatronics they do have look really good. It's also still a really long ride, coming in at 11 minutes. I do think one area that this ride is lacking in a bit is the story itself. To be sure, it's a happy ride and there's some catchy tunes throughout, but there's no tension, there's no drama, not like the old Splash Mountain. Oh, there it is, a comparison, my bad. Criticism aside, it does save its best for last. That 49-foot 40-mile-an-hour drop at the end is excellent, and that final scene is the best part of the ride. I think if this were a brand new ride, we might have a more favorable outlook on it, but because it replaced something so awesome, it is what it is. Number 2, Rapunzel's Lantern Festival at Tokyo Disney Sea in Japan. Hey, guess what? Another Fantasy Springs ride. And finally, at long last, Rapunzel has a dark ride. For the most part, this ride is a retelling of the film it's based off of, Tangled. I say for the most part because they do skip over any parts of tension, but that's okay. This ride, in general, really brought the film to life in a really good way. Of course, the best part of the ride, the signature scene, and the scene that this ride is named after, is the finale with all the lanterns. It looks absolutely stunning. The color and detail in this scene in particular is absolutely outstanding. I really like a lot of what this ride does, but in the end, I can't place it above number 1, Anna and Elsa's Frozen Journey at Tokyo Disney Sea in Japan. Guess what themed area this is located in? Yep, Fantasy Springs. After you're treated to a very well-themed queue, you're treated to an even better themed ride. For those interested, no, it is not the same ride as Frozen Ever After at Epcot and Hong Kong Disneyland, but yes, it is very similar. Those rides are good, but this one is twice as good. The projection mapping and screens used during this ride are used so cleverly. Everything was done with so much intentionality, and you know that it's even more stunning in person than it is on video. In terms of the story for this ride, like Rapunzel, it's basically a retelling of the film Frozen. There's a lot of things about this ride that I think are really impressive, but what they did to Anna at the end is really well done. Overall, while I know it's been a lot of Disney at the top of this list, that's to be expected, and I think Anna and Elsa's Frozen Journey is the best dark ride to open in 2024, and it's not close. So there you have it, 10 of the best dark rides that have opened so far in 2024. Let me know down in the comments below what you think of my picks. Would you change the order around? Are there any I missed? Let me know down below. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.